I'm going to get to introduce to you our very first speaker, Mr. Shane Scranton. So he is the CEO and co-founder of IrisVR, a company that's using AR and VR to improve design review and communication in AEC. Shane's an architect by training, and he founded IrisVR back in 2014. IrisVR is the very first company to develop VR software specifically for AEC workflows, and since their founding, they've helped thousands of users in the US and abroad deploy VR in the office and on the job site. So Shane's been recognized as a leader in virtual reality from outlets such as Forbes and Bloomberg and Wired. He's a big star, and we're really fortunate to have him here today.
Absolutely. And Shane, welcome to the stage, and thanks for coming to Midwest U.
Give him a big round of applause, please.
Good morning. Thank you, CTC, for having me. I'm really excited to be here on stage, and hopefully we'll get the morning off to an easy start. I know it's early. We'll talk about VR and AR and MR and all types of R. We're going to call this immersive computing. We are sort of running out of acronyms, so probably the easiest thing to do is just call it immersive computing and get on with it. So I'm going to start with some context where IrisVR comes from, give some context about our background, what we're working on, and then we'll get into talking about some trends we've seen with VR and AR in the space and some of the most interesting stuff, where we're heading, where we think immersive computing is going, and how you guys can prepare for the future of immersive computing. So IrisVR is a software company. A bunch of us are from architecture. We went over to the dark side of technology about 4 years ago, and we're now in New York City. We have 25 people, and we're working with architecture and construction firms all over the world. And our focus has been on how do we take design review and coordination workflows into VR and make that really a seamless process. VR is, of course, a brand new medium. There's a lot of technology out there for enabling VR and really making it accessible in the architecture and construction space. We've been focused on how do we take that and make it really seamless in people's day-to-day workflows in the office and on the job site. And quite a lot of our focus has been on actually more of the people not in this room, the people that aren't the technologists. How do people that are working day-to-day in firms that aren't necessarily comfortable with technology, how do we make this a really accessible medium for them to start using their work in VR and make it really simple? And the reason we're doing this is VR is a spatial medium. I'm sure a lot of you guys have tried various headsets, and the first thing that really stands out is that it is a true sense of scale, a true sense of space, and it's something that no other medium has really been able to do up to this point, of being able to stand in something that's not built and really feel like you're there and feel like it's a true sense of scale. That's something that we got really excited about back in 2014, and it's something that really unlocks a lot on the project and on the job site. And specifically, we've seen that it makes your clients happy, it improves client engagement. If a client is confused about something or they're not really sure what the design intent is, being able to put the goggles on and have them actually look around and see the space can really speed up that conversation, get their buy-in, and have that conversation move on. We've also seen that it's really helpful for a streamlined design review, especially even if the client's not in the room, with teams that are working on different design options, trying to communicate different design ideas, iterate through those ideas. Being able to do that in a streamlined way in VR can really be effective and save some time. More recently, we've seen that as VR has become more established in firms, it has also moved into the QA/QC realm, especially in terms of checking model quality and level of detail. As people are going into VR and walking through Revit models or walking through SketchUp or Rhino models, being able to actually be like, that table is floating 3 inches off the ground, or that pipe's sticking through the wall, seeing that in a true to scale way is really an effective way to make edits and catch errors. And we wouldn't be here without growing with our customers. We've been doing this for about 4 years, and we've worked with architecture, construction, engineering firms. The unifying trait among all these guys is they've pretty much switched from 2D to 3D, and now are moving from 3D into VR. And 2D drawings do not work in VR, so most of the folks we work with are focused primarily on 3D workflows and getting those into immersive technologies. So that's our context. And as I was preparing this talk, it's a really good time for us to give this presentation because we just hit our 4-year anniversary as a company. And This was about 2 days ago, we hit 4 years that we incorporated. And that's a big deal for me as a startup founder, because most startups by the books don't make it 4 years. And I hope we have many more anniversaries, and making it 4 years is a really big deal for a startup. And in that time, we've had a chance to see VR come from just an idea to having these startups really start developing these headsets to now it really being mass-produced and available to everyone. And in that time, we've really seen it evolve over a couple different development kits and into prime time where it is today. So I went into the archives, I found some photos. This was our first architecture demo back in 2014 with a very old headset. It was terrible in retrospect. It really made everyone really sick. And it still communicated a sense of space though, so it was able to build some momentum, but I'm happy we've gone away from this. This is our first trade show at AIA. And then this was Sean, who's speaking later. This was his first VR demo at RTC in 2014. And as we were giving these demos and as we started showing VR to people in the space, we really got the sense that AEC is the early adopter of virtual reality. And you can see that I quoted myself here because I said that a lot, and I was totally making it up. We had no idea if that was actually the case, if VR was actually the leader, if AEC was actually the leader in VR. But as we were giving these demos and as we started seeing the industry engage with virtual reality, it felt like this was really a medium that was going to take off in this space. And it's funny because at that time in 2014, as we were talking about virtual reality and we started talking about it in architecture and in construction, the media was not. Most of the focus was on gaming, and it still is on gaming. Virtual reality is made for gamers, it's made by gamers. Most of the technology under the hood is gaming related. And it's been interesting to see, as VR has evolved, a very strong focus on the consumer market. And now we are asking, 4 years later, how much are gamers actually using VR? And I absolutely love this Adobe stock photo. It was the top choice for me as I searched for gamers. I actually think he has a phone just Velcroed to his face. I don't think there's actually a headset there. And it gets better the longer you look at it. So I recommend searching for some of these. So, the games that have come up for VR are pretty awesome. I recommend trying some of them on the headsets in your office. And a lot of these games are running off of a platform that does track usage and is available to the public. So as we were preparing this talk, we went through and pulled some usage data from various games in VR, and we're going to compare it to what we've seen in AEC as well. So Rick and Morty, it's a TV show. They have a great VR experience. But you can see that even the heaviest users aren't going beyond like 15, 20 hours total using this game. And on average, they're at about 5 hours. Tilt Brush, which is an amazing experience for painting in space and being able to actually like sculpt things around you. It's really exciting for artists in the crowd, and it's really catering to the creative market. Again, they have a sort of small subset of folks that are using it a ton, 100 or 200 hours total. But on average, we're still seeing, in total, these consumers using it about 8 hours on average. And then last, we picked a AAA, really high-quality video game that is called Fallout. They were very popular games on the PC, and then they moved over to VR, and it's a full-fledged game with a storyline, and you can put 100, 200 hours into it. But again, in VR, we're seeing that the average is about 7 hours that gamers actually engage with this technology. And so you can see where I'm going with this. As we pull these numbers, it is still very obvious that gamers are treating VR as the new technology that it is. They're really testing what can be used, and it's very much the early days of this technology. So we were really excited as we started pulling these numbers. We pulled numbers from our own usage. We pulled numbers from some of our colleagues. And we found that AEC is really tracking on a totally different trajectory than gamers are in terms of engaging with immersive technology and VR. We had to check these numbers a couple times because we were really blown away that there are some people out there that are in total putting the headset on clients over 2,000 hours. That is a lot of time in VR over a year and a half. And the average is about 110 hours, which is, again, way more than what we've seen in any games. And that also breaks down to, on average, about 3 hours a week with the headset running in the office. And that is astounding to us because that is a lot of time with virtual reality running and someone having it strapped to their face. And of course, we're asking now, why is this industry using it so much more? I think for us, it's a fairly easy answer in that gaming and a lot of the consumer technology still sees VR as potentially a gimmick, as potentially something that is really new in this industry, and they're still testing it out. And AEC has switched very quickly into VR being a tool, and a work tool that can communicate one-to-one scale and communicate one-to-one space. And the second we see someone sort of make that leap into VR as a tool, usage is driven, there's retention, and people start engaging with it more. And this leads us to something that's very exciting for me, which is that this audience and AEC in general is the pioneers of immersive technology. And not just within this industry, but really among any industry that we could find, AEC is really leading the charge with virtual reality and defining a lot of those precedents. They're using it more frequently and longer than anyone else we could find. And as you guys know, this is not typical for AEC. What is typical is being behind on digitization. It is spending less on IT as a percentage of revenue than most other industries. And it is pretty clear that AEC with VR is really driving a different trend. This is from our numbers. We didn't get this from anyone else, but since 2017, we've had over 100,000 VR experiences created on our platform and spanning over 105 countries. And that is usage that we weren't expecting, and it certainly defines quite a lot in this industry around how VR is being used. So that's the retrospective. And I want to wrap up talking about where VR is going and where immersive computing is going, because there's a lot of exciting things coming down the line, and hopefully I can add some clarity to what's coming next. Good news is not this. Again, stock photos are helping me out here. We are not going to be sitting with laptops on a bench with some clunky headset reaching out into the clouds. These headsets are going to be much more streamlined and much lighter weight. The trends that we're seeing are broken down by essentially computing platforms. So I broke this chart down by desktop headsets. So those are the ones that run on a PC, and you need a really high-performance PC to run these experiences. There's mobile headsets, which you put your smartphone into a case, and then you can put it up to your face and look around, and those are usually lighter weight headsets. And then sort of a new bucket, which is standalone headsets, and those don't require a PC. Those don't require any mobile device. Those run fully on their own. And some of you have probably tried the HoloLens. That's an example of a standalone device. And as you can see, we started really on the desktop side. A lot of you are probably used to this. The headsets came out, you needed a high-performance PC, and that was the Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive. Those are continuing to evolve, but now we are trending towards, in 2018 and 2019, really the rise of standalone headsets. That's the Magic Leap, that's the Google Mirage. There's a whole bunch coming out. I'm not going to go through them all, but we're shifting away from the need for a computer or a mobile phone and having these headsets self-contained. And as this trend continues, we see a future where really the end form factor is a standalone device that looks a lot like this. It's hard to imagine this because right now when you look at VR, you look at AR, the headsets are clunky and they're huge. But as we look at the trends over the last couple of years, we're going to end up with something like this that people are used to wearing on the job site and in the office. So I'm going to leave you with a few trends. These are ones that we're seeing boots on the ground at Iris, and it's stuff that we're really predicting will come in the next year or two for the industry. Good news for everyone, the prices are dropping. In 2017, the full package that was the computer and the headset was about $4,000. In 2018, it's now $3,000. Already, since the start of 2018, some more headsets have dropped in price, some computers have dropped in price. So we are seeing this new technology starting to have the prices drop. The line between AR and VR is blurring. You probably saw in my slide where I broke down the headset timeline. I didn't differentiate by AR and VR. AR is augmented reality, so you get an overlay in your real world of a digital object, and VR is essentially fully immersive. The headsets that are coming are really blending these together, and that's good news for us because it means that over time you won't really need to specify which experience you want. Headsets will offer both. And then this is the one where I'm reaching a little bit, but work with me on this one. So if anyone has played World of Warcraft or any video games back in the day, video games have been doing this for a long time, where there's an idea of these online games where you can share in a digital world. But what's really important about these digital worlds is if you log out or you shut down your machine, they keep functioning, and they sort of have a shared persistent environment that people can tie into. So there's a lot of precedence in gaming for this idea of a shared persistent digital environment that exists even when you're not in it. And to illustrate this, I'll show you what we're working on at Iris. This is our multi-user technology. And this is multiple people in different offices coming into a shared BIM model that they are now coordinating around in this digital environment. And the reason this is following the trend of gaming and these online games is if someone makes a markup, or if someone makes an edit, or if someone changes something or leaves a comment, and then they leave the session, when they come back in a day later, or if a colleague comes in a day later, that environment still has those edits, and that environment remembers what's been done in that world. And of course, right now, this is the early days, so this is VR, but we see this applying to AR as well, applying to all future immersive technologies where people can coordinate on one centralized model that persists over time. And that will land us in a place in the future where the real-life job site, your digital model, both back of house and on the job site, will be synchronized, and you'll be able to wear your immersive headset on the job site or in the office and have this really be an overlay in your digital workflow. So what to leave you with, keep pushing the boundaries of immersive technology. We're really excited to see AEC pushing virtual reality and augmented reality more than any other industries. And as you start adopting this, get your teams in to start collaborating at a one-to-one scale, and give us feedback, because we're excited to see where this is going. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. Thank you, Shane.
All right, thank you.